Okay. Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. I'm Dr. Ursula Landman, and it is my pleasure to introduce today's fifth session and the second keynote speaker of the 2023 mid-year seminar. We are grateful to be joined today by Dr. Perrin Kotari. Dr. Perrin Kotari is a cardiothoracic anesthesiologist and clinical assistant professor in the Division of Cardiothoracic Anesthesiology within the Department of Anesthesiology, Pain and Perioperative Medicine at the Stanford University of Medicine. Dr. Kotari completed medical school at Rowan University School of Osteopathic Medicine, residency training at the Cleveland Clinic, and cardiothoracic anesthesiology fellowship at the University of California, San Diego. His academic interests include perioperative TEE for thoracic transplantation and medical education. Dr. Kotari is also a fierce advocate for mentorship, knowing how big a role having good mentors has made in his career. He is the co-director of the Stanford Anesthesia Mentorship Program and the Anesthesiology Speaker Program Inter-Exchange, ASPIRE, which provides early career faculty national speaking opportunities. Dr. Kotari is also active in several national organizations such as SCA, ASA, and ASE. Dr. Kotari will be speaking today on modern mentorship, bridging the divide between mentors and mentees. So please welcome me in joining Dr. Kotari.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for that kind introduction, Dr. Landman. Really appreciate it. I'm going to be talking today about modern mentorship, bridging the divide between mentors and mentees, a topic near and dear to my heart. So I want to cover our learning objectives. The first will be distinguishing between a mentor, a sponsor, and a coach. We'll also examine characteristics of what makes a good mentee, and we'll examine behaviors of strong mentors. And then we'll also summarize key components in creating a structured mentorship program to reflect at your own institution. I have no disclosures. So the first question we should ask is, why should we care about mentorship? It seems like in this day and age, a series of regularly scheduled meetings, whether in person or over Zoom, or even the occasional phone conversation seems quaint. But it isn't, and these relationships are more important now than they are in the past because of our constantly connected online environment, which doesn't necessarily foster strong and deep, candid exchanges that characterize a good mentor-mentee relationship. We can all think back to times in our career, whether it's in medical school or residency or even as an early career faculty, to a specific person or a mentor that's guided you towards a specific decision. Some of mine are in this room today. Let me paint you a picture of why I think mentorship is important. An early career faculty, fresh out of fellowship, joining a large academic institution where they don't know anyone personally. Navigating a department of 250 anesthesiologists with Nobel laureates and national organization committee members, trying to establish solid clinical care while advancing their career academically, trying to be productive and being a good educator, but not knowing really where to start. All of a sudden you have a paycheck that you're trying to interpret and wondering where half that money is going into the taxes, or how to interpret sort of these political emails that you might be getting from the Dean of Medicine. You know, that story is probably not unfamiliar to many people in this room, and that's my story. And I think it's a real challenge to try to make sense of all of those different factors while being a good anesthesiologist. So that's where mentorship, I think, has played a huge role in my life, and I'll sort of reflect on that throughout this next hour. We know that studies have shown that mentors who enjoy their work are more likely to stay on board and have good retention at their institutions, and then they'll also be identified as people who have more worthwhile careers and are happier in their careers. From the mentee's perspective, they enjoy collegiality, and they also are better able to achieve their academic goals. So mentorship is important not only for the mentee, but for the mentor as well. So the next question is, Are you a mentor? Are you a sponsor? Are you a coach? You may have heard of these terms, of course, in maybe athletics or in other parts of our life, but how does it relate to anesthesiologist? So first we'll discuss who is a mentor. So it's someone of advanced rank who guides, teaches, and develops a novice. They provide emotional and career support, and they facilitate insight and help mentees avoid burnout. Famous mentors in literature such as Virgil and from Dante's Inferno, or even in films such as Yoda and Star Wars, were guides for their proteges on their challenging journeys. But their relationship can reflect ours as well. Mentorship is a collaborative relationship between individuals who share that responsibility for achievement of that person's individual development. And success in these relationships is often based on personal compatibility and is measured by attainment of those professional goals. There are several different mentoring models that exist, one of which we focus on most as physicians, but for the sake of completeness, there's also an apprenticeship model, which has hierarchical positions and the trainee is taught by a more experienced professional. You can almost relate that to residency. There's the cloning model, where the mentor is planning a succession and the mentee is groomed into that role. There's the nurturing model, which we'll focus on today, which creates a safe and open environment in which the mentees can discuss their personal issues, learn and try things for themselves, and as their mentors act as resources and facilitators for them. And lastly, there's the friendship model. The friendship model, also known as peer mentoring, the mentors and mentees are actually close or at the same professional level, and they're able to mentor each other. And we'll briefly discuss peer mentorship towards the end. Next, we'll move on to discussing about sponsors. So who is a sponsor? They act as your advocate and they create opportunities for you. So you can be over-mentored while being under-sponsored. So you can have the best mentor who provides you resources and support, but at the same time, if they don't open doors for you and connect you to people within their network, they're probably not reaching their maximum potential. Hermina Ibarra from the Harvard Business School thinks of sponsorship not as a binary state, but along a spectrum. So she created this nice graphic. So it grows from a personal and private relationship at level 1 to a very public relationship at level 3. So in her definition, a mentor is someone providing advice, support, and coaching. Level 2 is a strategizer where they share insider information and help you strategize about getting ahead. Next is a connector. Those are people that make introductions to influential people and talk you up with their peers. An opportunity giver is a level 4 mentor, and they provide high visibility opportunities, such as invitations to speak at national conferences. And a level 5 is a person that's an advocate for you. They publicly advocate for your promotion. They fight for you in your settings where you can't fight for yourself. The last thing we'll talk about, the last category, is coaching. Coaching helps unlock the mentee's own personal potential and maximizes their performance. They help them learn new skills, practice new behaviors, and they listen. But the solutions come from the mentee's reflection and own self-creativity. And as a review, a mentor teaches, gives feedback, advice, and direction. They share their rules of the game from their experiences, but the solutions come from the mentor themselves. And lastly, a sponsor advocates for the mentee, provides visibility within and outside of the organization, connects those to within their own network, and helps to open them doors. The International Coaching Federation has 8 core coaching competencies, which I think are relevant not only to coaching, but mentorship as well. The coaches must demonstrate ethical practices, embody a coaching mindset, establish and maintain their agreements, cultivate an environment of trust and safety. They have to listen actively. They have to be aware of their mentee's potential and facilitate their growth. So with those categories in mind, how do you be a great mentor to those around you? It is really harder than you think. And just because you're a successful clinician or administrator or educator doesn't automatically make you a good mentor. But the good news is mentors can be developed. By default, mentors have to be knowledgeable and respected in their field for others to be willing to come to them for advice. But they have to be responsible and available as well. And they're interested in a mentoring relationship. And they have to be capable of acknowledging what the mentee's potential is and what their flaws are. And they have to be appropriately be able to motivate their mentees to advocate for them. So, as you can imagine, a perfect mentor embodies not only mentorship, but coaching and sponsorship all together. Shubha Ramani and her team out of Boston University had created a list of 12 tips for developing effective mentors, and I think they're worth going through. Tip number 1, mentors need clear expectations. They need to listen more than they speak and recognize that they're dealing with the entire person, and their outside of their work life will inevitably affect their work life. They need to have regular contact with their trainees to monitor their progress, and they need to have prompt and honest feedback. They need to outline what their role can be, and sometimes more importantly, what their role can't be as their mentor. We'll talk about more about expectations for mentors in a few minutes. Tip number 2, mentors need awareness about culture and gender issues. They need to be aware of their own biases, and the literature at this point is divided on how to pair mentors with mentees. Should it be along gender and cultural lines? Some authors argue that allows for more open lines of communication, but other experts argue that it can hinder advancement and progress. So perhaps it should be thought about on a case-by-case basis. And lastly, there should be a mechanism for reporting discrimination or issues relating to these topics. Tip number 3, mentors need to support their mentees, but also challenge them. Dallos and his team came up with this graphic, and they found that effective mentor and mentee relationship has to have 2 components, support and challenging. If the mentees are overly supportive without challenging their mentees, they do not grow professionally. But on the other hand, challenging them without support causes mentees to regress in their professional development. So on the graphic, if you see challenge line up with support, that results in growth, but challenges without support lands with regression, and if they don't have any challenges, that results in stasis. Tip number 4, mentors need a forum to express problems. Don't assume that once a faculty becomes a mentor, they become all-knowing and they do not need any further attention. Many mentors express that they need to have a mechanism for which they can discuss problems within their own mentoring relationships and get advice. Institutions can schedule periodic mentor meetings by senior educators and leadership who are knowledgeable about methods of troubleshooting problems in mentoring relationships. But confidentiality throughout this process is very important. Tip number 5, mentors should know their boundaries. Personal issues and problems will be discussed by a mentee, but the mentor training prior to becoming a mentor should include knowledge of professional boundaries and recognition that psychosocial problems may need referral to professionals such as psychologists and counselors. Tip number 6, mentoring the mentor. Most senior educators want to be mentored as well, as they may wish to change their career focus or their professional path, even though they hold high positions within their organizations. So don't abandon your educators and your faculty once they become mentors. Tip number 7, recognize the value of mentors. Most mentors usually perform their duties not because they're reimbursed for it, but because they consider it a rewarding part of their profession. However, they usually carry out their mentoring duties privately, so their superiors or their peers don't really know the load of mentoring that they carry. Palepu and their team suggest that institutional leaders should publicly recognize mentors as an elite group of faculty who are highly appreciated and valued for their work, which helps them convince the entire institution that mentorship is a priority. They can be given special honors within the institution, such as their names being announced at special events and otherwise openly appreciated. Mentors are really unsung heroes and should be recognized whenever possible. Tip number 8, reward the mentors. It doesn't necessarily need to be monetary. They can be rewarded in other ways. Mentor retreats or dinners can be held periodically. Extra conference funding or a small amount of non-protected non-clinical time is important. These rewards can be pretty easily given by institutions even in times of economic shortfall. Additionally, mentorship can be considered as part of a criteria for promotion. How successful has the people you've trained become? That really demonstrates your skill as an educational leader. Tip number 9, mentors need protected time. This emphasizes the institution's commitment to mentorship And again, it doesn't necessarily need to be paid non-clinical time, but simply protected as part of their duties. Tip number 10. Mentors need support and resources for situations outside of the norm. There need to be resources that the mentors can rely on for dealing with academic problems, substance abuse issues, or even relationship issues. Tip 11. Peer mentoring. We alluded to this earlier, but peer mentoring has been demonstrated to be extremely effective. So if your institution or your private practice doesn't have a wealth of senior faculty available or who are interested in mentoring, that's okay, because peer mentoring actually demonstrates a greater understanding of day-to-day clinical problems of early career faculty and workload issues. So this allows for early recognition of problems at their workplace. Tip number 12, continually evaluating your mentee and mentor relationship. You not only need to evaluate the relationship itself, but also the framework in which your mentoring relationship exists. So evaluate the context of your meetings, get feedback, and the quality of those meetings. Then look at outcomes. What progress has been made by the mentee, and what are some missed opportunities? Have you suggested any sponsorship opportunities for them? They need to look at the process or framework as well. Are there clear objectives for those meetings, and are they being held regularly? And are you being available to meet with them as frequently as they need? Harvard Business Review has demonstrated and described tips on how to be a good mentor. And these are adapted sort of from the business world, but I think they are extremely relevant to anesthesiologists as well. So first, run a tight ship and be explicit about expectations. This goes back to having your mentee understand what you can and cannot do for them. Set recurring meetings. Instead of ending a meeting saying, okay, we'll touch base about it next time, set that meeting at the end of your last one. That way, the mentee knows exactly how much time they have to accomplish their goals, and they should reach out to you honestly if they feel like that is too tight of a timeline. And that goes to number 3, about make accountability not optional. It's important that both you and the mentee respond in an accountable way for your time, because it is generally protected time that you're getting for this. Head off rifts and resolve them early. And the mentor should be responsible for this, not the mentee. The mentee is, there is a power imbalance naturally in these relationships, so the mentor should take this head on. Number 5, don't take credit for the mentee's ideas. Insist that they help you with your own projects or promote your own projects. Or don't discourage them from seeking out their other mentors to add to their team of supporters. Number 6, the best mentors try to create new leaders and not followers. Number 7, put the relationship before mentorship. So don't let the meeting simply become a checkbox activity as part of your daily schedule or your monthly schedule. There is no substitute for genuine collegial relationships between the mentor and mentee. Dr. Raggins out of the University of Wisconsin studied this, and they found that when there is no personal rapport between the mentors and the mentees, the relationship was as good as if they weren't mentored at all. So having that personal rapport is quite important. Number 8, focus on character, not competency. These mentorship relationships are generally not clinical assistance programs where someone may need help with their clinical acumen. These relationships should go beyond competency, and they do help shape a mentee's character, values, and self-awareness, and their capacity for respect. These traits often have more to do with promotion and advancement than to their clinical skills. Number 9, shout loudly with your optimism and keep quiet about your pessimism when it comes to your mentee's ideas. Consider all the ways the ideas might work rather than the ways it won't. And mentors need to be givers of energy and not takers of it. And if you're wondering about how to promote optimism when you think some ideas aren't that good from your mentee, you can use the 24/3 rule for optimism. The 24/3 rule from optimism says that each time you hear a new idea, see if it's possible to first spend 24 seconds without criticizing it, then try to spend 24 minutes without criticizing it, and then spend 24 hours without criticizing it. I think all the parents in that room may find trouble waiting 24 hours, but I think in the work setting, it may be possible. Number 10, be loyal more to your mentee than to the institution. The university or the private practice doesn't exist without the talent of the mentee. So since mentorship is a duty untowards others, and it's a service untowards others, If you want to inspire commitment and dedication from your mentee, they should be selflessly committed of the best interest of that mentee. So don't look at just their strengths, but look for their underlying passions to have taken this job in the first place. So now you absorb all the tips on how to become a good mentee, good mentor, and you want to start having meetings with your mentee. So here are some tips on how to manage those meetings. First, you want to start with a check-in about professional and personal life achievements or setbacks, and then allow time for your mentee to discuss and report back about the action items from the previous meeting. Then you want to discuss challenges and successes during the performance of those tasks. Then you want to think about setting your sights on next month's meeting and the target goals for those meetings. And ask if there's any topics that need to be covering. This allows them space to share challenges or sensitive topics. Lastly, ask for feedback about your mentoring at the end of each meeting. It might be hard to have self-reflection right in person at the end of the meeting, but you want to make sure that you and your mentee are on the same page. And one thing that's not included here is schedule your next meeting before the end of this last one. Some other strong mentor habits that are worth mentioning: help your mentee say no to requests that don't achieve their career goals. Early career faculty are roped into a lot of committees and programs and opportunities, and they don't necessarily know if that's good for their career or not, and that's where your role can be for them. So help use your expertise to help guide them to activities that are worthwhile of their career goals. And be a visionary and help that your mentee achieve that shared vision. Resist cloning yourself, because that mentee is not supposed to be you 2.0. This is not a cloning type of model that we're going after. And the last one is about coaching. Try not to offer solutions and help your mentee find their own ones. So that's where the coaching comes in, if you remember from earlier. Mentor training. So mentor training, if you're sitting here and saying, I do all of this, I'm great at it, that's awesome. But there's probably some of you in the audience that are saying, I don't know where to start. That's a lot of work. Thankfully, there are mentor didactics and simulations that can help mentors navigate and practice difficult conversations. This can be done before initiation of a mentee relationship, but also can be done concurrently. So now we're going to switch gears and we're going to talk about mentorability. Mentorability is a term basically describing how effective can that mentee be. How can you be a good mentee? So we're going to switch gears and talk about that framework for a few minutes. So mentorability is, first thing, a couple of questions that you need to ask for yourself as a mentee. What are you looking for in a mentor? What are you trying to accomplish? And what are your goals? But are you ready to be vulnerable and discuss your own limitations? Are you open to feedback? And do you understand the value of your mentor's time and, frankly, your time as well? Next, here are some tips on how to communicate effectively. As we mentioned, vulnerability isn't a vice, and don't be afraid to sound too ambitious. If your goal is to become the president of your private practice or department chair, that's okay. Share that vision and goal, because the mentors can help you, guide you through that process. But if you have goals set and you simply cannot meet them, or if your career interests have shifted, it's okay to be honest with your mentor about that, and honesty is the best policy. Here are some other tips by Ludwig about how to be a good mentee. You first have to drive the relationship by managing up. That way you know what to expect and know what you want out of the mentor-mentee relationship. You have to be explicit on asking the mentor what they need and telling them how they can and can't be helpful for you. There may be situations where they say, I can't do that for you, but it's up to them to be honest about their limitations to you. But defining your goals is very crucial, because they can help you guide you in the right direction. Invest enough time in the relationship and make your mentor meetings a priority. They have made time for you, and the least you could do is make time for them as well. Develop an agenda or a list of action items for each mentor meeting. That way you stay on topic and you know you're achieving your goals at the end of each meeting. Be open to other viewpoints and try to learn new skills and listen to their suggestions. And ask your mentors for feedback periodically. The feedback is key on improving your own skills. Reflect on that feedback and think about what you've been doing well and what you can improve on. But have an improvement plan for each of those action items. Take advantage of the opportunities your mentor offers you as it fits with your career goals. Some people reflect on saying that I'm an introvert by personality traits and they don't need to network, or I find this really challenging. And while we want to be cognizant of everyone's limitations and personal choices, it's important to remember that the mentors can help you connect to people that may you be able to connect with better. That can be colleagues who have similar interests or you can collaborate with. And lastly, thank them. Tell the mentor how much you appreciate the relationship and how much they've helped you. That simple thank you can go a long way. What are some expectations of the mentee? We've seemed like we've covered a lot, but there's a couple more that are worth discussing. You want to explicitly state your personal and career goals. This allows for minimization of conflict and maximization of benefits for you and your mentor. And this enables your mentor to guide you towards projects that best fit your work. Embrace that you're here to learn and extract constructive criticism and feedback for your mentor. And be open-minded and honest with your reflections. But remember, at the end of the day, you as the mentee are the primary driver of success. The mentors can help, coach, guide, and sponsor you, but in the end, you're responsible for execution. A couple of other responsibilities that are notable include asking productive questions, developing key listening skills, using trust-building behaviors, overcoming the awe factor. Your mentor may be your department chairman or the chief medical officer of your private practice, but they were in your shoes once and they are willing to be a mentor because they're looking to help you. So while it's important to be respectful, they're in that relationship to help you and you want to be vulnerable with them. Resolve your differences early. Try to capture the essence of your mentor's help and internalize that input when you work on your priorities. So now we're going to shift gears and talk about a structured mentorship program. This is a program that I helped co-create at Stanford, and it's one example of a structured mentorship program, and I'll sort of walk you through how we created it and how it's possible to create your own program at an institution like yours. So this is the topics we'll be discussing. You first need a needs assessment survey. You need to gain traction with your leadership. You need to recruit mentors and then get your mentees excited and involved. Then you need to pair them together with mentees and mentors together and give them a structured framework to work on their mentorship relationship with. You need to have, as the director of the program, be able to track tangible results. So at the end of the year, you can reflect with your leadership on what went well and what didn't go well. And then we'll also discuss some tangential yet crucial extras that we consider very important as part of the mentorship process. So it all begins with the needs assessment survey. You need to think about what's the current mentorship structure of your department. Does it need to be improved on, and what ways can it be improved on? How many early and mid-career faculty are interested in being a mentee? How many senior faculty are available to serve as mentors? Are there others within the department, such as administrators or non-clinical researchers, that could potentially serve as mentors? And then you need to gauge the interest from mentees and how many people really are interested in dedicating the time to this program. And also give them time to allow for asking questions about things that they're vulnerable with. So when we sent out our needs assessment survey, here are some of the topics that were mentees really requested more information about. Onboarding advice, clinical decision-making and support, advice on how to deal with benefits packages, financial management, retirement planning, how to build an academic career, and how to achieve work-life balance. As you know, on that list really wasn't, how do I induce this patient? How do I manage this airway? These are all really soft topics that were not taught to us in training. So these types of topics that are discussed with you in the needs assessment survey will serve as the backbone to the program, and I'll sort of show you how we've dealt with that. The next step is to create a mission statement. The mission statement serves as your guidepost, so when you're at forks in the road and decisions that you need to create, you're able to reflect on exactly what path to take. And when you think back to your mission statement, it can serve as your roadmap. So our mission statement is supporting our past, present, and future through mentorship. The Stanford AMP program is a structured mentorship program designed to support early career faculty. We aspire to equip our mentees with the skill, community support needed to achieve their career goals. We aim to harness the power of mentors, networks, information, and conversation to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. But the program goes beyond just simply pairing physicians together. They also provide quarterly update meetings and workshops on hot topics that all faculty know about. Now that you're armed with the data from your needs assessment, you can approach your leadership in the department for support. The leadership needs to commit support for mentors and mentees for this program to thrive. Mentorship needs to become a major strategic priority for your department. And the idea is to convince them that mentorship can't just occur ad hoc, it needs to have a structured approach. As we discussed in the 12 steps for being an effective mentor, mentorship support and recognition is often only achieved by leadership buy-in. And you also have to convince them that you need to invest in the program to create a culture of mentorship. And you need to identify resources that you may need for this program to be successful. That could be partial administrative assistant time, a recognition pathway for mentors, and some dedicated non-clinical time for the mentors and also the mentorship director who's in charge of organizing all this information. We discussed mentorship being a strategic priority, and here's where mentorship can become a sustainable competitive advantage within your department and your institution. The mentorship program can help develop leadership throughout the organization within your department and at the hospital level. It can help align the mentees' values with the goals of the group. It can help increase productivity of both the mentees and mentors. It encourages innovation and allows for continuous improvement. It allows you to recognize talent within your organization that may have been hidden otherwise. It also allows you to identify shortfalls and failures of the program, whether it's with the individuals or certain programs themselves. It allows for succession planning and helps with diversity. With that in mind, you've finally gotten approval from your leadership to proceed with this program. Then you want to start recruiting your mentors. The mentors really need to be self-driven. They have to really want to be an effective mentor. Even the best mentors who aren't interested or don't have the time to dedicate to mentees for a structured mentorship program may not be able to contribute effectively. They have to be interested in doing it, unfortunately, without extra pay. It's that recognition that's really key, and they need to have that emotional intelligence. So in summary, they have to be interested in helping fulfill their careers as part of a mentorship program, give back to the next generation of anesthesiologists, and earn a sense of camaraderie and friendship. Once you've recruited your mentors, you have to get your mentees excited and involved. Early career faculty crave mentorship and guidance, but they need your help. Sometimes they just don't know that they do. You can consider a mandate for all brand new faculty to your private practice or institution to join a mentorship program for their first year. That's because they might not need clinical decision-making support, but they might need a lot of onboarding advice. So the topics don't necessarily need to be regarding career advancement or research projects, but also can be about more routine and mundane questions. But the more you focus on reflecting a program that has the mentee's needs assessment in mind, the more likely you'll be able to create a successful program. So once you've created the list of mentees and mentors, how do you pair them together? Normally this happens organically as two interested parties are drawn together, but mentees are new. They might not know who all the mentors are, what their academic interests are, what their clinical interests are. So we ask all mentors to give a short bio of themselves and their CV to allow the mentees to peruse. That allows them to create a priority list of people who they think they would be good matches for. And we also allow the mentors to create a match list as well. So this sort of works like the residency match program. Instead of having a very expensive algorithm, it's myself and my co-director making these. So it's not perfect, but neither is that algorithm, as we all know. But the pairing survey is crucial because it allows them to rank each other and create favorable relationships. Sometimes we reflect on relationships between mentors and mentees who were not originally on each other's list, but have become very, very effective relationships. And we'll discuss a little bit about what happens when relationships don't work out. But we also give them an opportunity to put a veto list or a do not pair list, because there may be some personal history that you're unaware of and we don't necessarily need the details of. So if someone puts a do not pair list, we do respect that as well. Now you've paired your mentees and mentors together, how do you give them a framework to be effective? Well, you have to make sure your goals are aligned, and there are some evidence-based approaches to facilitate the relationship. This include active listening sessions, asking thought-provoking questions, giving deliberate instruction, specific and intentional praise, modeling good behaviors, and giving constructive criticism. But this has to be done in an environment of maintaining trust and privacy. The program has to have some structure to it to allow the mentors and mentees to thrive. We created what we call a mentorship agreement, which is sort of like a pact between the mentors and mentees that agrees upon some sort of meeting frequency and the confidentiality of their conversations. We also supply what's called an individualized career development plan, which allows for structure to meetings, identification of goals, but also focuses on execution. Here's the top half of the form for our mentorship agreement. And I know it's a little bit small, but towards the bottom of the slide, you can see that there's a set of guidelines we ask them to abide by. They're pretty simple and straightforward, committing to meet regularly, at least monthly, to keep their conversations confidential, to respect each other's time by fulfilling commitments to the program, and to being open about possibilities of needing a change of relationship. And that's okay. The bottom half of the form demonstrates who will be in charge of setting the meeting, the preferred mode of those meetings, and the preferred mode of communication. And we ask them to sign this form and return it to us for our files. This just serves as the backbone to the program, so if relationships are falling apart, we can refer them back to the agreement that they've had at the beginning of the relationship. I also mentioned the individualized career development plan. This is a form that we offer to help have some goal setting as well. So we ask them to define 1, 5, and 10-year goals, and then within their 1-year goals to break those down into sub-goals and have an achieve by date. So halfway through the year you achieve X, and at the end of the year achieve Y. The bottom half of this form looks like this, and it has a box for resources that the mentee thinks they need, or maybe sponsorship opportunities that they think they need, and it creates space for an action plan. And at the bottom allows for a log for their meeting and venue dates. So we've touched on this a couple of times now. What happens if things aren't working out? So if people are butting heads, what's the most frequent causes of that? So in our reflections, we found that there might be issues of race and gender, a cloning, conforming, or overprotection, or perception that asking for assistance is a sign of weakness or inability to cope in your new role, especially common in medicine. Some other common pitfalls in the mentoring relationship include scheduling difficulties, just not being able to make enough time for each other on your calendars, poor communication, incongruent or unrealistic expectations, and breaches of trust or confidentiality. So if you encounter any of those issues, we ask that the mentors or mentees do a quick self-assessment. Are their goals aligned with each other? And we ask them to speak directly to their mentor about these problems, and we reach out to the mentor as well, letting them know that there are concerns about the relationship. But remember, this is a program that's meant to give energy, not take it away. So if the relationship is not working, it's not forced upon anyone. It can be dissolved, and we can, if they're interested, pair the mentee with someone else. There's also some tangential or yet crucial extras that we think are worthwhile. We'll discuss some workshops, our Google Classroom, and a speaker exchange network. So the workshop, the topics are driven by the needs assessment results. We recognize that not all mentors can be experts on many different things, especially non-clinically related items. So the topics may be of interest to the department at large, so we invite all members of the department to these workshops that we've created. So this is the first third of our workshops. I realize it's kind of small, but I wanted to keep the images intact. We start the year off with an orientation in August, and we meet separately with the mentors and mentees to make sure that they have everyone is on the same page about their goals and understanding what the program is about. The next month we talk about how to be a great mentor, covering on some of the topics that we've discussed today. There's a lot of interest on our needs assessment about how to apply for grants, so we organized a panel of experts for that. Another common theme was financial management. You've now earned a large paycheck, and what do I do with that? What's between a 401k and a 457b and a Roth and a backdoor this and a that. So these is experts talking about how to deal with retirement planning. And since there was so much interest, we split it into a two-part session, the second being investment planning. There's also a lot of questions on how to achieve work-life balance. Experts at our institution refer to as work-life integration. The next was how to be a better intraoperative teacher. And the next was how to have difficult conversations. Difficult conversations with patients, families, relatives. How can you approach these conversations that we may not have been trained to have? The next was perks of working at Stanford. And then next month we have a risk management for anesthesiologists. We've brought in the risk management office, and they're going to discuss how to disclose medical errors to families, what to do if you're named in a suit, what's tail coverage about, and what's nose coverage about, all those different topics that we were not trained in residency to address. At the end of each academic year, all Stanford faculty have an annual review with their division chief, so we have a workshop on how to prepare that and promote yourself. And lastly, we have a year-end celebration, also part of our work-life integration workshop. So these are some examples of things that we had discussed in our needs assessment. And the reason why I show you these informations is that you can imagine that all mentors are not necessarily equipped to discuss these issues. They might not be expert financial managers themselves. They might not know how to deal with difficult conversations. So we felt that these were worthwhile to address to the whole department, not just our mentors and our mentees. Our Google Classroom. Where do we house all this information? Where do we keep our calendar? Where do we keep our schedule? So instead of sending out individual monthly emails, we enroll all of our mentors and mentees in a Google Classroom in which we're able to push them direct information. Sometimes we get the question of, I don't know exactly what to talk about with my mentor every time I meet with them. So we give them monthly optional monthly discussion topics and associated reading material if they're interested. Another tangential part of mentorship is sponsorship, as we talked about. So we noticed in our needs assessment that all of the mentees, or many of the mentees, crave speaking opportunities because they want to promote their expertise, and it's also required for promotion. But the catch-22 is, until you give national speak talks, you aren't recognized. So the catch-22 is, how do you bridge that gap? So we created the ASPIRE program, which stands for the Anesthesia Scholars Program Inter-Exchange. So just like everything else, it has a tagline. Our tagline is community building through knowledge exchange. So the ASPIRE group is a multi-institutional collaboration provided to provide early career faculty in anesthesiology a way of showing their work, interests, and expertise. And by offering a national platform for this community and knowledge exchange, we support community building within our profession, as well as stimulating growth and development of our next generation. So how does this really work? So it happens to be that Stanford's not the only place that has these problems. They're across the entire country. So we reached out to our contacts and asked around, do you have problems getting your early career faculty speaking opportunities? And we found that the answer is commonly yes. So as part of our group, we've recruited these institutions here. And you can see that they range from the West Coast to the East Coast and sort of in between. So how does this speaker exchange work? Well, we asked them to ask each institution to have a representative that we can reach out to. And we supply and gather a list of our own mentees who are interested in giving talks about something within their expertise. And then I reach out to, for example, another institution saying, I have a speaker that would be perfect for another speaking engagement. And then and they also send a speaker towards us. So in this even exchange, we're promoting their faculty while our faculty are being promoted. So if this sounds like something that your institution would benefit from, my email is on the last slide. We're always open for looking for more faculty to join this program. So far, I think we've had over about 50 speaker exchanges throughout all the different institutions that are listed here. So once you've established the program and it's off and running, how do you focus on continuous improvement? We don't want to stagnate. We're not in that stasis category. So how do we improve? Well, we need data and to see how we're doing. So we send out a mid-year and end-of-year survey that allows us to highlight our successes and lean into our weaknesses, and also allows us to get feedback from our stakeholders. One data point that I wanted to show is that since this program started in 2020-2021 academic year, our program has grown. The mentees started off at a little bit less than 40 and now are nearly at 60. And the mentor pool has also grown from a little bit over 20 to nearly 30 as well. So the program is establishing itself as an important part of early career faculty. And I think this sort of reflects many departments' explosion of early career faculty that are joining on. So it gives them an opportunity to participate in something that's meaningful. So here's a summary of characteristics of a strong mentorship infrastructure. It needs to exist in a supportive environment, and it needs to be a formalized program that allows you to track metrics. You need to have clearly articulated values and goals. There needs to be training opportunities for mentors and mentees, public recognition of mentors, an opportunity for continuous learning and improvement, and a supplementary skills program like the workshops or speaking exchange programs. Just to review behaviors of strong mentors, now that we've created a mentorship program, they need to have capacity for leadership, be able to stay in touch, be experienced enough to provide relevant advice, and provide advancement opportunities and sponsorship opportunities. Allow them to build their network, be honest, approachable, give comprehensive feedback, and identify and teach relevant skills. A review of behaviors of effective mentees include being receptive, identifying goals clearly, being self-reflective, proactive and committed, being available for your mentor, and acceptance of critique. So, as a summary, we discussed characteristics of good mentors and mentees. We highlighted the difference between sponsors, mentors, and coaches. We discussed step-by-step on how to create a mentorship program, and we talked about some tangential extras like workshops and a speaker exchange program. I'll leave you with some final thoughts by Anthony Tian. He's a venture capitalist and a New York Times bestselling author. He says that mentorship is about committing to helping others become the fuller versions of the people who they already are. And the most effective mentors are the ones that are devoted to bringing others forward with them. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to your questions.
We will now begin our Q&A portion. If anyone has any questions, please come up to the speakers to ask your question. And I have a question to start with. So I've been lucky to be a mentor to medical students and to residents in our program. We don't have a formal program like you have, but it's wonderful to see that. And we automatically pair people. So there's no like, you don't really know them before and they don't know us before.
Sure.
And I've had great relationships, but unfortunately I've seen where it's not been a good match.
Sure.
And the connection hasn't been made. And what do you do in that situation?
Thank you. Thank you. I think that having a connection is really, really crucial. And we discussed that's shown in evidence and in literature as well. So in our situation, we try to identify the problem and try to troubleshoot it. But at some point, if the bridge has been burned, we don't force those relationships on people. We try to repair them with someone else that may fall within their interest. But in reality, these are programs that are optional. If they're a good clinician and they're not interested in having a mentorship opportunity, that's okay. And sometimes if it's mentor-driven problems, we can offer additional coaching or didactic or simulation time to help coaching them through navigating those difficult conversations.
Excellent presentation. I applaud your efforts in the logical and structured approach to mentorship and taking care of those mentees. A couple questions. One, can I steal your pact and give you credit? And I like that you call it a pact and not a contract. I think that's very applicable to the relationship. But two, a little more serious questions. Do you think mentorship and leadership are mutually exclusive? And then a follow-up. We talk a lot about coaching, maybe more so with younger colleagues. But in your opinion, what's the difference between coaching and mentorship? Thank you.
Sure. I think that mentorship and leadership doesn't necessarily need to be mutually exclusive, but sometimes it can be. I think we all know people in our lives who are excellent leaders and administrators, but they don't necessarily have either the bandwidth or the sort of emotional intelligence to be able to provide mentorship on a one-on-one level. And I think that is reversed sometimes too. People can be great mentors, but they don't have capacity for leadership of many different people. I think the advantage of a mentorship program is it allows you to cultivate leaders from an early stage, because I think some leadership qualities can be taught and some are obviously innate. But I think that it's important to recognize that just because you're a senior leader in the department does not make you a good mentor, and just because you're not an executive or a leader in your department does not make you not a good mentor. So I think the mentors have to be self-identified if they're willing to take on this opportunity, and if it doesn't work, and if they're not effective even after some training, then we have, in our experience, not invited mentors back the following year, which is an uncomfortable conversation, but sometimes it needs to happen. And it sort of happens de novo because they ended up not matching with anyone, and there's no scramble. So, and to follow up the mentorship versus coaching, I think that mentorship, I think of mentorship as a big umbrella that includes lots of different things, one of which is coaching. The main difference, as what's described in literature between the two, is that the mentor supplies the solutions and ideas, as opposed to a coach helps you cultivate your own skills. And I think of that as the same in athletics. If your basketball coach doesn't come and play the game for you, but they'll teach you how to dribble the ball and shoot it. So I think in anesthesiology, it's sort of the same. But the mentorship, a good mentor includes opportunities for coaching as well.
Thanks for the lecture. It's wonderful. I'm somebody who participates in resident interviews every year, and there's been a shift, I'd say, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, where a lot of our candidates are interested in formal mentoring programs. It must be coming from the medical schools at some point. So my question to you is, how do you guys advertise your mentorship program from Stanford that you're building?
That's a great question. I think that obviously, based on the content of the talk, we are focused currently on the mentorship at the level of faculty. And the reason we've tried to expand it into residents and fellows, but since it does require a fairly significant investment from leadership, they felt that spending the resources on helping people accommodate through a trainee program that may leave Stanford is right now not within the goals of leadership. That being said, I think each residency needs a mentorship program as well. Just like every day they're learning anesthesiology information, all these topics that faculty are wondering about as early career, they can be taught during residency as well. And I think that's where mentors can come in too. I think mentors in residency have to be a little more clinically focused, especially in maybe residents who are struggling a little bit. But I think that establishment of a formal mentorship program, even within residency, is a great recruiting tool because, like you said, almost everyone is asking for it. And I participate in fellowship interviews, and I sort of advertise this program as something that we're focused on as faculty, and that encourages, and since residents are sort of looking forward and looking for job opportunities as part of their fellowship program, I think it helps with recruitment as well.
Quick question as far as programs, because have you found in your doing this, looking at the data at the end of the year, as far as large programs, small programs, some people are in private practice, even at a large institution, have you found that it's better to have mentees and mentors from different divisions or crossing over into other parts? Maybe they don't know those people as well and it builds a better relationship, or in a small, for instance, our one pediatric program had all trainees and all first year coming out and not a lot of senior mentors that could mentor anyone. And then when we start going into the adult side or cardiac, there wasn't a lot of leadership that kind of coincided and mixed well. So have you guys found that you kind of keep people within their same structured groups or cross them?
I think the ideal goal is someone outside of their structured group. And that's sort of my personal feeling, and that's worked well for us for sort of two different reasons. One is it's more likely for them to make sort of natural connections to people that they work with and see every day within their own division. So their clinical colleagues are someone that's helpful. And if you work at an institution like mine, I don't see my pediatrics colleagues. I don't see my OB colleagues. So I think having relationships outside of the division helps cultivate those relationships that you might not already have otherwise. So I think that's we try to overlap them, and I think most of the time they have their own mentors within their program, and I think having several mentors is really key as well.
If we don't have any other questions, then thank you everyone for your questions, and we will need to conclude this session. And please join me in thanking Dr. Kotari, and I will now turn it over to Dr. David Ninen to moderate our next session.